Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Fantasy Football Touchback. I'm Chris, with my host Megan, who will join us in just a second. We are here to give you exactly what you need every single week. Smart, sharp, no fluff fantasy football advice, all in 30 minutes. So, here's the deal. Every week, your league is won or lost by not just the stars, but by your decisions. We're not here to drown you out with stats or throw a 90-minute marathon that you can't listen to. We're here to get to the point, helping you with your starting lineup at every position, with breakout players, sleepers, waiver steals that you can actually use. Divisional previews that matter for fantasy, not just for the headlines. And yes, a bit of boldness, because winning your league is not about only safe choices. Fantasy football evolves every single week. Between the player usage, injuries that shake up rosters, coordinators that get fired or just change the game plan. If you're not paying attention to those dynamics, you're going to fall behind. But luckily, we are paying attention. And our job is to cut through that noise, filter the data, and make sure that we translate it to win your matchup. So, whether you're going to listen to us on your commute, sneaking us in during one of those quick breaks, or stressing 5 minutes before that lineup lock, this is your spot for clarity, conviction, and of course, a little bit of fun. Because at the end of the day, fantasy football, it's more than just points and rankings. It's about bragging rights. It's about strategy. It's about the thrill of pulling out that win by just half a point. We've all been there. And with us, you'll never go into Sunday unprepared. So, this is the Fantasy Football Touchback, where you're going to have big-time advice in just 30 minutes. Let's get into it, and welcome to CTW. All right, let's dive in. But before we get into the quarterbacks, tight ends, and kickers, because, hey, points are points, and sometimes those kickers do swing the matchup, let's set the table with what we mean by classic PPR format. In a classic PPR format, that means that it's a points per reception. It is the most popular scoring system in fantasy football. Where you start, you get 1 point for each catch your player makes. So that includes on top of the yardage and touchdown they rack up. All right, let's dive in. But before we get to the quarterbacks, tight ends, and kickers, because, hey, points are points, and sometimes those kickers do swing the matchup, let's set the table for what we mean by a classic PPR format. PPR stands for points per reception, and it's the most popular scoring system in fantasy football. In a standard PPR league, you get 1 full point for every catch your player makes. That's on top of the yardage and the touchdowns that rack up. So wide receivers and catching running backs tend to get a little extra boost compared to the standard scoring. Also, Josh Allen, remember last year against the 49ers in the snow? He threw and caught the touchdown. He got points for all of it. It was like a 40-point play. It was insane. So, if that's real confusing from what I'm just saying, let me break it down into simpler terms. All right. 1 point per reception. Pretty simple. 1 point for every 10 rushing or receiving yards. 6 points for a receiving or rushing touchdown. 1 point for every 25 passing yards. And 4 points for a passing touchdown. And of course, kickers and defenses score based on field goals, point after touchdowns or pats, turnovers, sacks, and return yards, which this year is going to count for something with the change in the NFL rule. So in short, volume matters a ton in PPR. A running back with 5 catches or 40 yards is going to outscore another running back for 80 yards with no receptions. That's why guys like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara in their prime, or more recent, people like Jahmyr Gibbs and James Cook are fantasy gold. also, you have to think about it another way. If I'm not getting touchdowns, then people like Marvin Harrison Jr., Justin Jefferson, or Khalil Shakir, they just dominate because they have 8 to 12 receptions a game. So, even if they don't score, those catches alone are piling up their points. Now that we've gotten the scoring foundation set, when we come back, we'll jump into the first position group, quarterbacks, the kings of the NFL, and talk about who's going to lead the charge this PPR season. Be sure to subscribe and like the page. All right, let's start from the top. Quarterbacks. Your main things are going to be your pocket passers, your dual threats, your long game, your short game, depending on your coaching. All of this, you're going to be just rack your mind. So, we'll just make a list. Simply put, you're going to have a handful of quarterbacks that you're going to want to pick from. Personally, I like the dual threat monster. People like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Some people like Jaden Daniels. Last year as a rookie, Jaden Daniels was fantastic. My biggest concern, though, for him is going to be the fact that he is a second-year player, and coaches who didn't know him last year are now knowing how to square up against him in their defense. Once these coaches are smart, they're going to find out. They're going to figure out a way to stop him. Eventually, he's not going to be able to do what he did last year. Think about what happened to CJ Stroud. So, as for my list, to start off with, I'm going to always go Josh Allen. Reigning MVP, why not? This is one of those things that you can't ever go with it. You have multiple tiers. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, they're the top two. In every single draft, they're going to be the first two always taken. But if you go by ESPN, they are going to have Jaden Daniels as the number one. Like I said, it really just depends. But once we go back down the list, you have, of course, what people will say is the GOAT now, other than Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. You're going to go ahead. He's always very consistent. No matter what, he's going to get you 400 plus points a season. That's just how he's done it for many years. Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, plus Gesicki in the backfield as well with Chase Young. That is a powerhouse just waiting to happen. Jordan Love has a insane collection of underrated wide receivers. He spreads it around. No one is going to get 1,000 plus yards, but Jordan Love will always go ahead and put up that 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 yard seasons, and he spreads it around. So running backs are going to get it, tight ends are going to get it, and then the wide receivers. Justin Herbert, some people love him, some people hate him. But again, you have to take the coaching into consideration here. You have Jim Harbaugh, who is a running coach, but a former quarterback who loved to throw. So it's all about where are they going to be throwing the ball. And honestly, I don't know where they're going to throw the ball in San Diego. They have Hampton now that they drafted to run the ball, plus Najee Harris. So they at least have that. But he's always very, very high on everyone else's list. We already talked about Jaden Daniels. He's going to do well, especially with once Terry McLaurin comes back in. But we'll wait and see. He's kind of up there with CJ Stroud to me. Trevor Lawrence, when is this guy going to break out? He has the weapons. He has the coach. When is he going to break out? Hopefully, it's this season. And of course, the gem of last year's draft, Caleb Williams. Now, you take what he just did in the Bills game over the weekend, and he lit them up. Yes, it was against second and third stringers, But that's what you hope from Caleb Williams. He didn't look panicked like he did last year. He looked like he was ready to lock in. And don't forget, his wide receiver and tight ends and running backs are all set up for PPR leagues. DJ Moore, Adunze, the new kid, DeAndre Swift. You have Loveland as a tight end. You have Cole Kmet as a tight end. Plus Ben Johnson as a head coach. I mean, you saw what he did with Jared Goff, and you saw what he did with Amon St. Brown. I expect great things from Caleb Williams. After that, we'll go ahead and talk about tight ends in just a second. Now, let's talk about the tight ends. We all know Travis Kelce has been the gold standard for years, but this year sounds and feels just a little different. Kelce's getting older. Brock Bowers is coming in as the elite running or rookie from last year. It's just a entirely new system. So let's look at the list. At top, we got Brock Bowers, of course. Um, he is the only person that the Raiders are going to be throwing to. Yes, they have Ashton Jeanty right now as a running back. And Genty's going to be good. But if you know that they're going to run the ball, they're going to stack the box, which means everybody's expecting them to run. Who are they going to throw it to? They don't have anyone. So Brock Bowers is it. Geno Smith is not one to usually light it up. So I expect Bowers to come down from where he was last year, but probably not that much. Kyler Murray and Trey McBride have an outstanding rapport with each other. They are one and the same. And with the backfield in Arizona, with Trey Benson or Connors, you have no one else to really do anything. We really want to see Marvin Harrison Jr. do something, but last year there was a lot of hype, but no fire. Sam Laporta is probably my favorite. Out of every single person, every single tight end in the league, Sam Laporta, I think, is where Detroit really comes in strong. They are really pushing for something that is going to say, hey, Ben Johnson went to Chicago. We don't need him. We are still elite. And Sam Laporta is one of the many ways that they're going to be able to do that. TJ Hawkinson, as long as he comes back from that injury okay, is a solid tight end for JJ McCarthy to go ahead and have. He's always going to be able to catch the ball. He doesn't drop passes at all. And so when they get down tight with Aaron Jones pounding the rock and Justin Jefferson going on top, TJ Hawkinson is going to be able to just sneak in and make those touchdowns for you. Travis Kelce, like we said, gold standard. Don't have much to say. Number one target for Pat Mahomes. Mark Andrews. You're going to see Mark Andrews, and I think he's going to have another big year, even though ESPN projects him to have a less of a year. I expect Mark Andrews to actually have a better year this year than he had last year, simply because he has something to prove for dropping that ball in the division round last year's playoffs against the Buffalo Bills. Tucker Kraft, another kid who's coming off of an injury, but could have a really big year because guess what? As we said earlier, Jordan Love spreads the ball around. So he's going to have his opportunities. Which brings us to Dallas Goedert from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we're kind of surprised that we haven't talked about the Eagles much here because, well, the Eagles, they're big in defense. They're a huge defensive team. And you don't see them make a lot of big plays. You had Saquon Barkley, who we'll get to during the running back section next week. But you're going to go ahead and have Dallas Goedert, who's just reliable. And at the end of the day, a tight end, you want them to be reliable. Which then brings us to Dalton Kincaid. I really want Dalton Kincaid to show us what he's made of. A few years ago, he came out of the draft, and he was outstanding. He was a top tier tight end. Would not drop anything. We need Dalton Kincaid to get back into it. And this is his third year. The one thing about the Buffalo Bills, if you look at the way their coaches actually coach, third year players always make a jump. Every single time. So, like Mark Andrews, I kind of expect Dalton Kincaid to make a push for that. That next step. I dropped it in the conference championship. I'm going to make up for it, and I'm going to make sure I make up for it. So, when we come back, one last position for today's summary, the kicker. And boy, do I have some wonderful, wonderful opinions about the kickers. Time to give the kickers some love, because scoring a 50-yarder is worth 5 points. A 60-yard bomb is worth 6. We just saw Cam Little hit a 70-yard bomb in preseason, so 7 points, more than a touchdown. If that's how your league scores it, they're probably going to do 6. Bottom line is, kickers shouldn't be ignored. They are absolutely what could turn a tie game or a close game with one kicker left and have them score more than a running back or a tight end or a defense. It sounds crazy, but it happens more times than not. So, let's give you a list of kickers. Right off the bat, you're going to have Brandon Aubrey. Dallas kicker, inside a dome, money all day long. Secondly, Jake Bates. He has a leg. And I fully expect him to completely keep kicking. And hopefully, they're putting up the points that they were last year. Now, you see that between last year's projection, or last year's total and this year's projection from ESPN, they think he's going to go less. I think he's going to go more because he's not going to be doing as many extra points. But again, we're in a dome. Daniel Carlson, Vegas Raiders. I think this is the only way they're going to really be scoring points. Jensen's going to get them close. You're going to have Brock Bowers get them down there close. But Geno Smith, is he going to be able to help them punch it in? I think Daniel Carlson takes a bunch of threes all year long. McLaughlin is a solid tier 2 kicker. Kind of lines up with Dicker. Kind of lines up with Harrison Butker. You put them out there, you know they're going to hit it. Anything from 10 yards to, which you don't see 10 yards anymore, but anything from a 10-yard to a 50-yarder, those guys are money. Tyler Loop, the rookie prodigy, replacing Justin Tucker. Well, we will see. They really like him in Baltimore. They even have a catchphrase, Loop, there it is. I know. It's not the best one, but it at least is catchy. Cam Little, I had to put him on the list because he just hit a 70 in the preseason. If he can hit a 70 in preseason, then you know Jacksonville's going to at least be able to have the ability to try it, because why not? How else are they going to score? Trevor Lawrence has Travis Hunter, but we have yet to see how Travis Hunter is going to hold up if they have him play both ways, which they are planning on doing. Fairburn is a solid, another dome kicker, but he does have a tendency to miss those long ones or hit long ones. He's a very hot and cold kicker, but nonetheless, top 10 on all metrics, no matter where you're seeing him. Tyler Bass, now, again, solid kicker. You look at him, he's a top 10 kicker in every metric. from yardage to extra points. He's going to get them the ability to score because the Bills' offense is always in scoring position at any point in the game. The only issue with Tyler Bass right now is Tyler Bass is kind of dealing with a pelvic injury. And I'm not sure how I feel about a pelvic injury on the kicker. Now, kickers are very important. Don't pick a kicker before the last 2 rounds. It's just not smart. No one else is going to do it. Unless you have every single player you want and you're just looking for fillers and you say, hey, perfect time for Brandon Aubrey because I need a kicker right now and I have every position that I want and all the people I want. Go ahead. But personally, that's where I go with my defense. All right, let's wrap this up when we come back. All right, so that's the breakdown for the quarterbacks, the tight ends, and the kickers in a PPR format. And, perfect timing. Let me introduce you now to my co-host, Megan.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, back to school night. Next episode, we'll dive into the real bread and butter. Wide receivers and running backs, that's where leagues are won. Thanks for tuning in to Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Megan. That's Chris. Make sure you like and subscribe.
And remember, nobody circles the wagons like CTW.
See you next time.